The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff or management of Visionary Related Entertainment.
Aloha and welcome to 2017. It's that time. Can you believe it? We've made it through the holidays. Why doesn't it feel like we made it through the holidays? Anybody out there having some issues that they want to talk about or hear about? We're going to be hitting that a little bit later on in the show. But first, I'd like to tell you that you're welcome, and we welcome you to listen to our show, the Maui Nonprofit Notes, where each week we'll find us talking story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and staff to find out how they're working to support those with needs within our community. Maui Nonprofit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's Cabinet and Appliance Showroom, located in the Waikapu Bayshard. I'm Susie Tiemann, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Nonprofit Notes. For those of you who may be listening for the first time to this weekly show, during the hour we share some of the experiences of our nonprofit agencies and just how they're changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those with needs. Today we're going to start off with some folks from Maui Mediation Services. We've got, first of all on hand, we've got Bhavon Bowers. See, there she is, the Executive Director. And we've got Leilani Kepler, who is the Program Client Coordinator. We've got Priscilla Villu. It's spelled, there's so many letters there, but you don't say them all. So that's cool. So we've got Priscilla, and when we got Bill Staten. And Priscilla and Bill are mediator volunteers who have distinguished careers in the volunteer mediation business. I think, Bhavon, didn't you say something like 30 years apiece?
They are two of our longest-serving volunteers. 30 years, I think. Priscilla, you were in the very first class. Bill, were you in that first training class as well? So,
wow.
Yeah, they are the lifeblood and have been of the agency for quite a while.
You know, I could probably ask one question and take up the rest of the half an hour with their answers.
Let's see.
The strangest mediation you ever took part in?
I think my first one was, oops, getting stage right here.
No.
So it was on that very first one I had was, where'd he go?
Come on, just talk to me.
Okay.
Just talk to me, Priscilla.
Well, it was on a cattle ranch, and where some people took one of the steers off of the property, and so what they were going to do was try to mediate that case. So that was one of the
that's
first,
interesting.
And it was the strangest one.
Wow. Did it get resolved?
I believe so. It did.
Yeah,
that was the
time.
First one. That was a long time. That was
Really?
in 1983. So.
Wow. So it was a theft.
Cattle rustling. That was what it was.
A case of cattle
The
rustling.
South Cowboy, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. That would be an interesting situation. Yeah. But they all agreed to mediate.
Yes.
And to try to work it out.
Yeah.
That's great. Bill, how about you? What did you come up with as your strangest?
I guess I don't really think on the terms of strange, but one that was more unusual was we had both parties show up, and they both brought their lawyers. They were armed to the hilt, ready for a long battle. And once each side listened to what the other side had to say, we had an agreement written up in just under 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Now that's a success story for mediation services. But that's why mediation is needed.
Well, that's why it's so successful. If you put down all the barriers that you bring in, be it arms or be it people that keep the conflict going, and you really start unlocking the tools to, first of all, get off your chest, because until you feel that somebody's really heard you, you're going to carry that around, but then you're able to listen in a different way, and things become possible you wouldn't have even thought of. And that's the beauty of what the mediators bring to it, because as totally neutral third parties, they're able not to say, I'm going to be your sword and I'm going to go in and fight for you. But let's talk about it. Let's explore what's really going on. And that unlocks the process.
In your situation there, Bill, was it a case of misunderstanding each other or not listening to each other? And so they thought it was a worse situation?
There is an expression that says, be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. And I think the reason we get ourselves into mediations and into the court so often is people tendency is to be very quick to speak and very quick to anger. And that's unfortunate. And when they come to a mediation, having the opportunity to hear what the other person's been trying to tell them in their own words, sharing their own experience, it's sometimes the very first time they ever listened. And as they get to listen, and just as you said, Susie, if people listened better, there would be far less problems.
Right.
And that's our job, is to try to help them hear what was just said. And it begins by our having to take the time to listen to what they're saying and make sure that we're hearing it properly.
Is there really a light bulb that goes on when they catch on to this whole thing? I mean, because what I'm hearing here is that it's kind of like putting yourself in their shoes. How were they thinking about this thing? And that comes through when they start talking.
Right. That's exactly what happens. And what's important for us as mediators is to not be taking sides, but to be taking the time to really listen to each of the sides and to really give our all to that side, that party, when they come in and share. So that we are trying to put ourselves in their shoes. We are trying to imagine what it must be feeling like, and then checking that out with them and seeing, is that really what's going on? That sounds very painful. That sounds very frustrating. That's what you're saying to it?
Interesting. 20 minutes. Wow.
And see, every mediator brings their own special gift to it. For instance, Priscilla's the queen of the easel board. So when I would talk to her about how she would handle mediations, she pointed out that using this board takes the focus off of looking at that other party you're so mad at, but it gets them to focus on creating a solution. It was something like that you told me, Priscilla, right?
Yes, and that was in one particular case. We had two females from high school, and we had both of their parents involved as well. And they each came with their own groups of friends. And so how to disarm that whole tension was I used the board, I call it the whiteboard, and I started writing out what their thoughts were, and both of them saw where they came from. And how the parents got involved was they were all friends at one time, but now because of the situation, they were not friends, and yet they wanted to be friends, but they weren't friends. And so somehow with the board and seeing how everything was laid out, according to their stories and how they saw things, they realized that they didn't want to be involved with their children's their gripes. So what happened was they decided right there amongst themselves to not be involved and allow the two to really go at it and work at it. And once the parents went off, then everything was fine here, and then we could proceed. And which turned out to the other groups were waiting outside. They were able to dispense that information as well, and so all was good.
Right.
So
back to friends again.
Yeah, back to friends, and they were starting to make arrangements of when they could get together again.
Good. That's, the ultimate outcome, right?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't always happen, though, right?
Precisely. Yeah, you got the 20-minute side that's the extreme, and I think another extreme was one where I had people who had been in business together. They had started an entity and it was working well until it didn't, and then people got so upset with each other that it was getting quite volatile, and they came to mediation services. And it was one of the first times I'd done a shuttle mediation in a brand new way. I was literally shuttling from one part of the island to another part of the island because these people did not want to even come in the same vicinity together. They were afraid they would hurt one another.
Wow.
And it would take, I think that mediation took 10 days to be able to complete. But when we were done, we had everybody feeling good about the agreement that they had come up with that would meet their needs to be able to move forward and not be so concerned with seeing the other person the next time they were in public together.
But the business didn't get put back together.
The business got rearranged in a way that everybody was very satisfied.
Oh, good. Okay. Because that's one of the things that we look at Lokahi, because we have the incubator and startup business program over there, and we see a couple of guys or a couple of girls get together and they've got the skills. One's got the accounting knowledge or business knowledge, and one's got the skill for making the product or whatever the case might be, or selling the product. They get together and they start to become successful, and it all falls apart. And without both of them, it can't function. And we keep saying, of course, that the answer to that is you both need to learn a little bit more about what the other one does, not enough to try to take it over, but to understand it. But it falls apart, and perhaps a really great business goes down the drain. Whereas if they did understand a little bit more about what the other one did, they maybe could find another partner. It's so sad when a business falls apart like that.
Yeah, and that's not an unusual mindset. I mean, you find that in business, you find that in families, you find that on teams, and basically, if we just look at our own body, our mind would go, you're not going to do very much without me. Without this mind working, it just isn't happening. And the heart's going, well, you're right, but you don't really have what it takes to keep on working without me. So that heart and that mind that we all struggle with all the time have to find a way to give respect for what the other one is doing, to realize that, yes, my job is important and I couldn't do it without you.
Right. That's a very good analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Profound.
Ooh. Very good.
We've got profound mediators.
Obviously. Now, about how much time do you devote to mediation? I mean, so many hours a month, or when you get a call, and how does that work? Bhavan, what?
When we get, Leilani will do the intake with the clients and find out, get an overview of what the dispute's about, and then she and I discuss what the particular needs are. A lot of this she does on her own because she's been doing it for so long, but we discuss the mediators that would be most effective, because we've got volunteers who are taking time out of their day to come together and help resolve conflict. But you look at the personalities, you look at the conflict involved, if there are any special skill sets. Although our mediators are from all walks of life, you don't have to be a certain such and such to handle this, because the work comes in asking the right questions and getting the sharing to start. But it's a puzzle. It's what's going to work best. And there'll be some times where this mediator and that mediator would work better than another two people that have had the same training. So it's a fluid kind of process, but it's fun.
So then you contact the ones that you feel
Leilani,
should
you
do
go
it.
ahead.
Leilani, you want to address that?
So Bill and Priscilla are great. I mean, I call them and I almost always say yes unless there's something going on, but they're so available and they're so flexible and able to do it. I mean, Bill's done, 4 in a month. Priscilla's done, I mean, they're great. And, but yeah, it just depends. It really just depends on the caseload and what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
But could I just clarify that, because I have a feeling that Leilani's not going to speak to all of what she does. So we're doing the mediations once they've gotten through what needs to happen to bring them to us. Mediation begins with who's calling Leilani. There's a lot of friction, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of upset people that Leilani needs to have the skills to be able to work through all of that to help them see the value of coming to the table. So we're just very, very fortunate to have Leilani be the person that's answering those phone calls.
Oh, very good, very good. And I can see the importance of that, because there's probably times when one really wants to do mediation and the other one's going, oh, well, it's not going to help. And then, but okay, make the call and see what happens. Then it becomes a sales job kind of for you to convince them to give it a try.
It is a sales job, and a lot of people say no, and that's fine. It's a voluntary process. We're not going to force anyone to come into mediation. I mean, that's the beauty of mediation. It's best when parties come in voluntarily. The ones that are court referred and the ones that are self-referred, The ones that are self-referred come to a much higher agreement rate than the ones that are court-referred. So.
Interesting. Now, give us a little clarification on the court-referred.
So we get referrals from district court, small claims court, and family court. Family court referrals are the agreement rates are a little higher, but the district court, small claim court are about 50% agreement rate. The ones that come in self-referred are about 80% agreement rate. So
if the dispute is money issues, somebody owes somebody something, court says try mediation first.
They do.
Okay.
They don't force them to mediate.
Okay.
It's still a voluntary process. They strongly suggest mediation, but yeah, it is still a voluntary process, and we never force them to come in.
Right.
So if they're wishy-washy, then I say, it's completely voluntary. I go over the process. I go over what's going to happen, and a lot of times they do mediate, and then other times they don't. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
We have to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with our Maui nonprofit executive directors and their staff to find out what they are doing in the community that helps all of us. Actually, a lot of times we think of our nonprofit agencies as a lot of social services, a lot of health issues. Mediation services covers all that kind of when you think about it, because problems within the family, problems within the workplace can affect your health, can affect society.
If it's a dispute, it's something that's ripe for mediation. And there are disputes everywhere because people have different opinions. We are all different. We all see things differently. The thing is, when they start to fester and the communication stops, that's when the negativity and the tension can build, and it can blow into something that was really manini, and then it becomes, I can't stand to be around that person, or no, I'm not going over there for Christmas dinner. Gotcha.
Or
I don't want to go to work.
and right before the break, we were talking about the mediation requested by the courts. And one of the things that I always think about is in a court situation, you have a winner and a loser. It's an adversarial kind of situation. But with mediation, hopefully you have two winners because they've worked it out to some degree of, they can get along with that decision kind of thing. Could be the worst case.
That's the goal, is the win-win situation. That's what the mediators aim for.
Right.
For both parties to leave happy.
And Bill, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Well, and our goal is just that. We want both people to feel that they have gained from this process. And when there's an agreement, that's exactly how they leave. Lawyers in the tradition is their goal is for their client to win. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why they're in business. We find that more and more lawyers in our community anyway have come to see the value of mediation services. More and more of the lawyers in our community, which we're very fortunate, actually encourage people to use mediation. When we talk about those court cases earlier where there's not as high a success rate for mediation, it's generally because the client does not have a lawyer who really understands mediation. I actually remember going in when the client finally said, I really don't even want to do this anymore. We're just going to go to court. And when we went in and we started to talk about the things that we were doing, one of the things that I said to the client was, well, just to be clear, it makes no difference to me whether you proceed or not, because I'm just volunteering. We don't have a dog in this fight. And the client then turned and looked at us, you're just volunteering, but my lawyer said you got paid. So you see how there's a miscommunication for what it is our goals are all about, okay? So Priscilla and I and all of our mediators, there isn't a mediator who is paid to do a mediation that comes through the office. There may be some special cases where companies, businesses, state, county may ask for someone to come in. That's a different contract. But otherwise, when you just come in for the mediation in our office, we're all volunteers.
And certainly no bonus to the one that wins.
None whatsoever. What we get out of this, we do get something out of it. And I'll
There you
speak
go.
for Priscilla, and I hope I'm not misspeaking. What we get out of it is the satisfaction of helping people see that they too could have resolved this on their own. There's not something, well, there's something special about Priscilla, but there's nothing special about us as mediators other than we care and we really want to help the process for them to see how easy it is once you've listened to the other side to find a way to come up to an agreement that meets both people's needs.
Right. Do you try to delve any way into somebody's background or their where they grew up, or I mean, are there differences of opinions that come from that kind of thing, where they're actually totally thinking on different levels? Do you ever run into that?
I have, when they don't see eye to eye, or because of their culture or their thinking or their growing up patterns, that they can't reach to some kind of agreement or even understanding, even on any commonality, common ground. So then we may say that it's not mediatable because of, and these are the reasons why. And sometimes if there's a holdout, we can test if there's a holdout, because then when we say, well, then this would end it if, we can't go forward, then we would call this off. And sometimes it works that they will say, if they really wanted to mediate, but they're holding out, then they say, well, let me think about this, because they don't want us to stop. And at times they do want to stop. They say, I'd rather not deal with it.
It's like they need time to think about it.
Yeah, they can, decide. We offer them to consider coming back if they need time to think about it, or give them homework. If they really want to come back, then make sure that these are the areas, because we've already dealt with whatever their issues were. So what is it that they really want to go into the next time that they do come in, so that we get them to prepare themselves and not just come in because they have to come in or there's a date.
Right. Interesting.
So when it comes to the delving into the differences in their backgrounds, I don't know that we necessarily come with shovel in hand, but clearly things will come out as they're talking. So as Priscilla said, there are occasions where a situation, we reach an impasse. There's really no more giving, no more flexibility, and you reach an impasse. And normally that comes from seeing things so vastly different. But if we go back to your example of the people that went into business together, by definition, a person who has the skills, the creativity to start a business comes from a different mindset than the person who has the skills and the detail orientation to keep the business on track. So you bring those two mindsets together, and they don't come from the same place at all.
Right.
So in listening to them and helping the other side to hear where they're coming from, we try to phrase it in ways that the other side could then appreciate, so that they see the value of this perspective that isn't theirs and doesn't ever need to be theirs, except as they continue to move forward in a collaborative effort.
Interesting. That's a very good point. I never thought about that. That the mindset of the two different people, just simply because of who they are and what they do and what they've maybe accomplished in the past, puts them on two different tracks.
Well, if you think of what typically is thought of for getting married, horse and carriage, the idea of opposites attracting. So those opposites come from a very different way of looking at life. Yet together in their marriage, what a beautiful music they make together, if you will,
Right.
until there's a lack of harmony and the discord becomes such a dissonance that they don't want to continue. Well, how do we go from there? Well, that's a counseling issue. once it comes to a mediation issue, then we still have to respect what each party's need is and how do you move forward. We've had some mediations that have gone for coming in for divorce that after they've listened to each other, there are times when people don't want to get divorced anymore. I'm not going to tell you that happens a lot, but it occurs just because they listened to the other side. They understood this is why we had an impasse.
Interesting. Yeah, kind of pay attention to each other. It's bottom line. So now, talking about the mediation and our the mediators that have been talking to us here today, Priscilla and Bill, you've got a class coming up for people who might be interested.
We do. We have our basic mediation class, which is the entry into providing services for us. But even if you take the training and you don't become a volunteer, the skills that you get, you can take back to your families, you can take back to your workplace, you can take to your organizations, wherever there are people, and you'll become the go-to diffuser. Because as I said, conflict's going to come up. There are going to be disputes. How they're handled is what makes all the difference. And the only thing that is necessary to be a successful candidate for the training is to care. Priscilla and Bill have two of the biggest hearts that I have ever come in contact with, but they genuinely care about everybody that walks into our offices. No special prerequisites. You don't have to have a certain degree. We break it down to the point where it's relatable and the skills are real, and at the end of the first day, until it's a 4-day, a 32-hour training, you'll walk out with something you can use at the end of every day. So if they'd like more information, they can find it on our website at maumediation.org, and it is February 9th, 10th, 16th, and 17th.
Cool. So those are what, Friday and Saturday?
These are actually Thursday and Fridays.
Oh, Thursday and Friday.
Thursdays and Fridays.
Okay. Full days?
Full days, yes.
Okay. That's cool. And your phone number, in case they want to just talk to somebody.
244-5744.
That fast, our half an hour is up.
Wow.
Priscilla, Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie.
Leilani,
Thank
thank you for all you do over there. And Bhavan, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's
been great.
It's always a pleasure. And I keep thinking one of these days we're going to get into something really meaty. But I mean, some of this today was.
Yeah.
It really was. I mean, there's some interesting situations that we've talked about. And I think that if people would just, and we get back to the thing about talking and listening, finding out what's real, not trying to hide the hurt. Bring it out. Let it be on the table.
You know, people do, the resolutions are always the same about losing weight, the getting fit. How about making a change with the way you interact with people? And that's something powerful you can affect right now. And that's what we're hoping more people will want to be a part of.
Cool. Thank you so very much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Susie.
You all have a good 2017, and maybe we'll see you back again this year.
Sounds
Very
good,
happy
Susie.
New Year
Thank
to
you.
you.
Okay, thank
Happy
you.
To all your listeners, Happy New Year.
Okay. Cassandra, what did you think about that?
That's very interesting. And the thing that I really like about mediation is that both parties can take part in the crafting of the solution. Where you go to court, it's imposed on you. You have no control. So mediation is a wonderful thing, and I hope more people will take advantage of that.
Hopefully that could be a tag on what we just said.
There you go. Yeah. Coming from a realtor, have you ever had anybody in mediation?
No, I have not had to.
Yeah?
Thankfully.
Yeah, right. But I could see where that's the kind of thing that where it could come up in real
Yes.
estate transactions, and either at the time or down the road where I thought that was in there, kind of a comment comes
Yes.
and sparks that little fire.
And it's interesting now in the real estate contracts, there is actually phrases or portions that deal with mediation. And if you can't make it through mediation, then you go to arbitration. Hopefully you can stay out of the courts.
Gotcha. And the voice, excuse me, not my voice, but Cassandra, last time you were supposed to be here, you had my voice. Why is it, what's happening? Anyway, we welcome you, Cassandra Abdul, the Executive Director of Nahalio Maui, and you're also the Principal Broker, right?
Yes, I am.
So you do it all.
I do, or at least I try.
Okay, for those of you out there listening, Nahalio Maui is our land trust organization that you've started building new homes. You started out, let's go back. You started out rehabbing houses.
Correct. We're a community land trust, and we were buying foreclosed and abandoned homes, taking them and rehabilitating them, and then selling them to income-qualified Maui residents. And ours is a little different. We are leasehold. We sell leasehold. And the big benefit in this is that the homeowner doesn't have to qualify or pay for the land in their mortgage. So that helps them tremendously with the price of the property.
And that's where the affordability comes in, that
It
people
is.
can pay less. They can afford less, so they pay less, but they end up with a very nice house.
They do that, and we also share some of the appreciation with them at the time that they sell their home.
Okay. You've been around how long now as an organization?
We've been here we made 10 years in August of 2016.
Okay.
Yes.
So in that 10 years, you've probably had a couple houses that have turned over.
We have 33 houses, and we've had 35 families. So 2 of the homes have been resold again to qualified
And
families.
Just to further a little bit, the fact that they you partner with them in the appreciation of the houses, that was a very satisfactory situation for both.
Both left with much more than they came into the Community Land Trust. The last family that we did this with started in Hawaiian Homes, in a very small home, and then they started having their family, their children, and they outgrew their home. And then they were able to qualify and buy a Community Land Trust home, and they were with us for 3 or 4 years. And now they sold it back to us, and they moved into a market rate home.
Wow.
Yes, so because you are in a CLT, a Community Land Trust property, doesn't mean that you're there forever. It is possible to move up into a market rate home.
You have the freedom to make your choices, and
Correct.
and that. How many years does that situation cover with that family?
From the first, that
When they moved
family
out of the
was with
homelands.
us, was about 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
With
That's not
us.
bad.
And it's because the mortgage is low enough, because there's so much value in the property, they don't have to pay PMI, which is the
Private
mortgage insurance. Yeah. So their mortgage amount is very reasonable, and the way the market has been recently, it's about half the cost of renting the same property.
Oh my gosh.
So they were able to save that money so that they could move into the next one. And in fact, the husband was able to then become a police officer. So he was able to change his career or move into a career because they didn't have that pressure of having to meet
Right.
their financial needs.
Interesting. A real success story there.
And one of our homeowners has said to the former executive director that we're not just building homes, we're changing lives one home at a time. And that's become our tagline.
Yeah, I like that statement. Yeah, changing lives one home at a time. Wonderful. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back, and we'll talk in more detail about with Nahalio Maui with Cassandra Abdul.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back. This is Maui Nonprofit Notes, where we talk story with our Maui executive directors for our nonprofit organizations about what they're doing to support those with needs in our community. And this half of the show, we're talking with Cassandra Abdul, who is the executive director and principal broker for Nahalio Maui. 10 years, I'd say that's a pretty good test. This must be for real.
That's right. We have a longevity now, and so we know that it actually will work here in Hawaii.
What are your prospects? What have you got going? Are you building new houses? Are you still getting some foreclosures? Are there some out there that you can work with?
Well, everything has been going up and appreciating, so that's also true of the foreclosure properties. We have one foreclosure property that's in escrow, and once we are able to get that purchased, then we will have one more house to rehab. But that's really what we have in the pipeline right now, in addition to the 12 homes that we will be building in the Kahoma subdivision in Lahaina.
Okay, now that's scheduled to break ground later this year.
Right.
Or midsummer or something, I think I've been hearing.
Correct. And we're almost, we haven't closed on the properties yet because we were waiting for the approval by the County of Maui for the final subdivision. So that's almost there. And we will probably be closing on our 12 lots, and Habitat for Humanity will be buying 10 lots. And that will probably occur either the end of January or sometime in February.
Oh, so it's coming up quick.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very good, but that's been a project that's been a long time coming.
No kidding.
I know I was going through some records the other day to look for some details that somebody had asked me a question about, and I saw some notations back from 2007 and 8 about Kahoma, and I think we actually were a part of the original project.
Yes.
And pulled out around 2010, someplace in there, I think, and went on to do some other things instead, but. It still looks like it's going to be the perfect properties when it gets done.
Yeah, we're excited. We're really looking forward to it. Being able to, it's been difficult because we haven't been able to provide enough housing for our families. And we've been doing it one house at a time, anywhere from 4 to maybe 6 houses a year. With Kahoma, we'll be able to do 12.
Right.
And that's going to be quite an increase in our portfolio and the number of families that will be able to have safe, affordable housing in perpetuity.
Now, you built a kind of a spec home. Was that last year or was that the year before already?
It was in 2016 we finished it, yes.
Okay. And that's the design that's going to be going out to Kahoma or some form of that?
We relooked at that.
Okay.
The house was a spec home. It was the first home that Nahalio Maui built, and it's a very pretty, fancy house. But it's a little pricey in terms of cost. And it's important for us to keep the price down so that it's affordable for our families. And we believe that we can design and build a very nice home at a lower cost.
Oh, okay.
So that's what our goal is.
So as a spec home, it did its job.
It did.
It taught you a few things about the house and fixing or the fixtures and so forth that need to go in it.
Correct.
Now you serve the folks you serve are basically what, from the 80 to 120, 140% of income?
It depends on the funding agency. Generally, with the County of Maui, it's up to 120% of the area median income. However, our approval by the IRS allows us to go up to 140%. And that would only be with funding that came out of Nahalio Maui directly and not through the county or some other agency.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, the higher priced home is all yours. So for those of you out there that we're talking about 80% and 120% of median income, 80% roughly is somewhere in the neighborhood of $65,000 for a family of 4.
Yes.
And the 120 is something like $95,000 for a family of 4.
Correct.
And that can vary if the family's smaller or larger. Mm-hmm. There's a percentage add-on or deducted, whatever the case might be.
And those numbers come from HUD.
Right.
And they change annually.
Right.
Correct.
And this year there was a huge jump in
yes.
them. Surprised a lot of people because we didn't have that kind of an economic jump. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out. I think May is when that is revised. Yes. It'll be interesting to see whether it stays flat for this next year to kind of make up for that. or whatever's going to happen. But
Correct.
it's a number that HUD puts together. It's supposedly based on the local economy. So I'm not sure exactly where those numbers came from, but it was quite a shock to some people.
It was, and while it allows you to make more income and still qualify for affordable, there's still a disconnect between what we can afford in terms of mortgage.
Right.
So you may income qualify, and be eligible, but we don't always qualify for the loan in order to be able to purchase the property.
Right. That monthly payment. I know there was when we were qualifying people for our project that's going on right now, I had what I consider to be the most perfect couple. Right out of school, they'd both gotten jobs. They'd been in the jobs now for like 10 years. They both had pretty good retirement 401k programs going for them. As a matter of fact, they were so good, it kicked them out of the program.
Yes.
Because in the assets that you have, you can only have up to that annual income.
Yeah.
So that $95,000 was the max of what they could have. And between the two of them, they were over that. And it was so hard for me to say to them, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. You've done everything right. You've got good credit. You're making good money. Your family of 5 is kind of the perfect, if there's a perfect family out there, this is the perfect scenario. But the assets have put you out of the ball game. And they looked at me and they said, we just ran into that with another program. I think it was maybe even yours, where the same thing had happened because you have the same criteria. And then they had also tried out for someplace else where there was a lottery, and they came in like the second person after the end of those who got houses. And they said, what are we to do? And they said, people keep saying with those kinds of assets, you should just go buy a market rate house. That stands to reason that they've got the money to use for a down payment. But what you were just talking about is that monthly payment, and that's where they were going to get hurt. Because the monthly payment was going to stretch them so thin that for being comfortable with what they had and building up this future for themselves, that was all going to go away if they bought a market rate house.
Well, and there's a couple things that contribute to that, and we see it quite often when homeowners buy condos, because you have to qualify for the mortgage. If you have less than 20% down, which everybody has less than 20% down,
Right.
you have to pay private mortgage insurance, which is several $100s more every month. And then with condos, you also have the association dues. Or you can get that in the homeowners associations also with
Right.
subdivisions. But when you add all of those amounts up, that is quite often what triggers your not being able to qualify for the mortgage.
Right. Wow. That's true. You put those three numbers together, it adds up fast.
Right. And as I mentioned earlier, because our appraisals that we get for the properties are high, it's more than 20% over the sales price that we use, because we subtract the cost of the lot, that our homeowners, I think there may have been one or two on the very beginning that may have had to pay private mortgage insurance, but none of the others have had to. So at least 30 have not had to pay private mortgage insurance, and that's a huge savings.
So if what we're looking at is if there's 20% difference between the appraisal and the purchase price of the house, you can eliminate the PMI.
Yes.
Wow, that's great to know, because you're right. That can be a sizable amount.
Correct.
And very few people who are in the 80 to 120% category have got $40,000 to put down.
Only if they did, they'd
go with the market
they
rate.
start running into the issue about
You're
their
right
assets.
back into that
Yeah.
again. Yes, that's true. So when you're looking at 5% down or whatever, it's a reasonable number. The monthly payment is reasonable. Now we've got another factor coming in here, which you're going to be facing with the building this year, is the rising interest rates.
Yes.
Could make some difference.
Yes. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we have quite a bit of time before we'll be ready to sell. So in the next year, we don't know what's going to happen to the cost of materials, the cost of labor, and interest costs, because that's going to affect all of us. Right now, our homeowners are buying with 3% down, and about 2% in closing costs, so a total of 5%. But Nahaleo Maui also has a matching down
Oh, that's
payment
right.
assistance.
That's right. I read about that.
Grant. In the event that you need it, we will match what you have up to $10,000. Some of our homeowners have needed $3,000, maybe $5,000. Some have needed $10,000. And at this point, we have invested another $105,000 into our homeowners' ability to buy the homes.
So now that matching grant, is that repayable or?
Under certain circumstances. If you stay in the house for 15 years, the grant is forgiven.
Okay.
Okay, but if you sell prior to that, then yes, you need to repay the grant. And if you were to refinance,
Oh, okay. If you refinance your mortgage during that 15
Right.
years, okay, then you have to build that into what
Yes.
you need to take out of the new mortgage.
right? But right now, luckily, our homeowners have been able to buy with very low interest. And if interest rate starts rising, it's not
Nobody's
gonna
going to
happen. Yeah.
refinance. Yeah, that's the good news for those
Yeah.
who have been able to do it. Wow. So the matching grant is a good thing.
It truly is, and it's helped many of our homeowners get into homes that they otherwise would not have been able to do.
Right, right. So now your homes, you were talking about 30 some homes. They're spread around the island, right? They're not concentrated in any one
No.
place.
We have homes in Lahaina, Kihei, Kaului, Wailuku, upcountry in Makawao. So we have scattered sites.
And I'm sure you have a wait list of people.
We do. Our interested home buyers go through our 4-step program, and once they complete that, then they are put on our qualified buyer list. And when we do have something to sell, then we notify everyone on our qualified buyer list.
Okay.
And then they have the opportunity to decide whether or not they're interested, and if they are, they can tour the house. And then if they want to proceed, then they can work with us.
Oh, okay. So the 4-step program, what's entailed in that?
Well, the first step is to come to one of our home buyer seminars. There's no charge, and we have them about once every quarter or so. And we talk about our program. It's not for everyone. First of all, it's leasehold, and there's some people that think that they feel strongly that they need to own the land also. So clearly they wouldn't be interested in that. But it gives people a chance to learn about us, how the program works, and decide whether they want to pursue something with us.
Okay.
They need to get pre-qualified by any lender. And then they also need to take an 8-hour class. And quite often it is with some of the other nonprofits here in Maui. And it's to learn about financing and about how to take care of your home.
It's like a first-time home buyer?
Yes,
Okay.
it absolutely is. And then at that point, they are ready to go onto our qualified buyer list. We also meet with them and go over some of their financial information to determine that they are indeed income qualified.
Okay. Now, say you have 6 people interested in this house. How do you decide who gets it?
We have a home buyer selection committee that is composed of board members. And what they do is they do a blind selection. So they don't know who the buyers are. They're buyer A, B, C, D. And then we kind of go through all of our criteria. The primary, of course, is that they are going to be owner-occupants, that they qualify financially, and then we go to our secondary criteria. And we try to match the size of the family to the size of the house. So that's one of the criteria, how long you've been with us, how you've been participating in the community. There's a number of different criteria that they look at, and then they make a selection without knowing who the home buyers are for a primary buyer and then a secondary buyer if the primary falls out.
Interesting. That's an interesting process.
Yes. And it's worked very well. With almost without exception, our primary buyers have
Purchased.
gone on to purchase the house.
Wow,
Yes.
that's good. So you don't really, well, you do have a wait list. But not everybody on that wait list is going to qualify for any house that comes up, because there'll be
Right.
various things, the
Right.
number of bedrooms, the location, things like that.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Right, and this last house that we resold is a small 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's about 1,200 square feet. We have families that have 6 and 7 and 8 in their family, and those houses just won't suit what their family needs are.
Right.
So even though we have any number of home buyers that are qualified, they all won't want to pursue that particular home.
Right. Interesting. Wow. What haven't I asked you? Let me see. I know the minute we say goodbye, I'll go, oh, Susie, where were your notes at the time? But now, you said you get funding from the County of Affordable Housing Fund.
Yes.
Do you get some state and federal funding as well?
We have in the past.
Okay.
When we first started, we were able to get under the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which was federal funds that was administered by the state. But recently, no. We are looking at different sources of funding. But as you said, executive director, you get to do everything, and sometimes you can't fit everything into a day.
Really?
So, yes.
Well, I thought that was just me. Oh, I'm glad to hear that hits more of us than just me.
Right.
Now, if they want more information, they can give you a call at
244-6110, or go to the internet and look at our new website, which is www.nahaleomaui.org.
and it is a beautiful website.
It's
You're right.
wonderful. And in fact, since we started it, we have had several large donations based on people going to our website and seeing what we're doing. And we also have pictures of all of our houses in there, too.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Cassandra, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And a happy 2017 to you. And it's going to be a great year if we can get that project out in Kahomo off the ground.
Absolutely. And, I know that you're doing great work, too, with Lokahi and getting more homeowners.
Right.
Wonderful. And, we all address the issue. And between Lokahi, Habitat for Humanity, and Nahaleo Maui, we pretty much have the spectrum of affordable housing covered.
Right.
And good luck to us all.
That's right. Very good. Thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you.
Maui Nonprofit Notes is sponsored as a community service by Pacific Source, the builder's choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380 or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Base Yard on East Oahe Way to see how they can help you with your building project. The Maui Nonprofit Directors Association's mission is to provide personal and professional support to nonprofit executive directors, their organizations, and the community of Maui. Please visit our website at mauinonprofit.org for a list of member agencies. And a great way to start out 2017 would be to pick one of those agencies that does something you're interested in and give them a call and volunteer for them starting today. We want to thank the folks from Maui Mediation Services, Bhavon Bowers, the executive director, Priscilla and Bill, for their 30 years each of service, and to Leilani for working with the clients and getting them ready for mediation. We want to also thank Cassandra Abdul for being with us. She's the executive director of Nahaleo Maui, and we wish all these agencies the best for this year. Mahalo for tuning in and joining us. Don't forget to join us again next week, same time, same place, when we'll feature 2 more agencies. My name is Susie Tiemann, Executive Director at Lokahi Pacific, and your host. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great week, everyone. Aloha.